Karoline Leavitt thought she landed a knockout punch on national TV. But Jasmine Crockett didn't swing back with words. She answered with something far more powerful. And it left Karoline scrambling. "You don't actually believe that's a real solution, do you?" Karoline said, eyes locked on Jasmine across the glossy studio table. Her voice carried just enough sarcasm to earn a few scattered laughs from the audience. The moderator shifted, ready to steer the conversation elsewhere. But Karoline wasn't done. "Because if that's the best you've got, Congresswoman, I'm not sure what exactly you're bringing to Washington." For a moment, the room held its breath. Cameras zoomed in. Producers in the control booth silently prayed for drama. Political Twitter was already warming up. Jasmine blinked, once. She leaned back, then smiled. Not the strained kind politicians wear under pressure. This smile was real. Calm, almost amused. "I bring receipts," Jasmine said quietly. "Please, go on." Karoline tried to hold the moment, hurling half-baked stats and recycled buzzwords in Jasmine's direction. Words meant to paint her as unprepared, out of touch, performative. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't interrupt. It wasn't silence, out of weakness. It was strategy. She'd learned long ago. When someone tries to humiliate you in public, the worst thing you can do is give them the spectacle they're after. You stay still. You listen. And when it's time, you speak so clearly the noise around you collapses. The round table segment went viral. Karoline left the stage with the confidence of someone convinced she'd won. She tweeted a clip before. Her team even reached the green room. "When you come prepared and they've only got slogans..." Jasmine didn't tweet. She returned to her dressing room, unclipped her mic, and perched on the arm of the couch. Her aide, Liana, leaned in the doorway, arms folded. "She really thinks she got you," Liana said, visibly irritated. "She did what she needed to do," Jasmine replied. "But that doesn't mean I didn't." Liana arched a brow. "You didn't say much." "I didn't have to." A pause. "We're not playing the same game." That evening, Jasmine boarded a flight to Providence, Rhode Island, for a local listening session she'd committed to weeks ago. By then, the headlines were split. Some praised Karoline's fire. Others called it performative, even among Karoline's supporters. Jasmine's stillness struck a nerve. "She didn't even blink," one commentator noted. "It's like she knew something the rest of us didn't." She did. On the plane, Jasmine opened her laptop, not to draft a response, but to finalize a proposal, one that had been quietly in progress for months. A bill rooted in hard data, community stories, and real meetings. None of it staged, none of it for show. The issue Karoline had flung at her on camera, the trap, was the exact topic. Jasmine had spent half her first term deeply researching. She didn't need to argue on stage. She just needed to finish the work. She scrolled through the document, highlighted key lines, tweaked phrasing, reviewed footnotes, and testimonies. Real families. Verified data. Every word backed up. As the plane began its descent, Liana leaned over. "What are you doing?" "Finishing the conversation," Jasmine said. Karoline may have replayed her sound bites that night like trophies, but Jasmine was about to shift the spotlight in a way no one expected. The Providence hotel room wasn't fancy. Jasmine had stayed there before. Beige carpet, 2 firm pillows, nothing flashy. She didn't need luxury. She needed space to think. She slipped off her heels, walked to the desk, and reopened her laptop. Outside, the city slowed to a hum. Inside her mind, everything sped up. Fragments of the round table played back. Karoline's tone, the smugness, the sideways glance from the moderator. Jasmine hadn't forgotten any of it. Not because it stung, but because it revealed something. Karoline had no plan, just posturing. Jasmine's fingers moved steadily over the keyboard. She wasn't writing for applause. She was building something no viral moment could touch. A legislative proposal that would outlast the clip. Liana came in, dropping a takeout bag on the table. "You haven't eaten since yesterday." "Not hungry," Jasmine murmured, eyes still on the screen. "People think you lost tonight," Liana said, softer this time. "You know that, right?" Jasmine paused. "Let them." They were busy chasing headlines. She was writing the next one. She leaned back in the chair. "A good soundbite dies in a day," she murmured. "Policy lasts a lot longer." The TV buzzed softly in the background, another pundit panel recycling the same takes. Karoline's face flickered across the screen, all polished confidence and smug certainty, parroting the same line she'd already posted online. "It's easy to talk big when you've got no real record." Jasmine grabbed the remote and muted it. "I have a record," she said, under her breath, more to herself than to Liana. "They just haven't read it yet." On her laptop screen, the final draft of her proposal stared back, gritty, detailed, uncompromising. It didn't dress itself up for the cameras. It wasn't built for applause. It was built to hold up under scrutiny. It tackled housing instability, not with lofty theories, but with numbers, timelines, and solutions. It exposed the slow machinery of federal aid, the loopholes at the state level, and the real-world consequences that too often got ignored. And it named names, including the bill Karoline had once advised against before flipping her stance when cameras started rolling. Jasmine had the receipts, voting records, memos, internal summaries, all of it. But this wasn't about humiliating Karoline. That was the difference. Jasmine wasn't climbing by tearing someone else down. This was about the work, about the people buried in the data, families who'd sat across from her in crowded community centers, folders in hand, voices tired but steady, people no one ever put on television. She thought of Alonzo in Hartford, a Marine father of 3 evicted because the VA took 6 months to process his claim, or Julia in Fort Wayne, a full-time nurse sharing a single room with her mother and 2 daughters, her housing voucher caught in a bureaucratic glitch no one ever fixed. Karoline had reduced it all to one phrase. People just need to work harder. Jasmine had met those people. They were already working. She closed the laptop. "It's ready," she said quietly. Liana turned toward her. "You want to wait? Let the noise settle." "No," Jasmine said. "I want them to see what it looks like when someone actually does the work. No build-up, no press tease, first thing in the morning." The room went still. There was something about Jasmine in that moment, composed, precise, like a blade kept sheathed until the exact moment it's needed. No posturing, no rehearsed lines, just intention. At 5 a.m., she hit send, emailing the proposal to her legislative director in D.C. At 6, her comms team received a draft statement. No press conference, no podium, just a release, the proposal, and a PDF titled, "The Work They Refused to Do." By 6:30, it was out. While the world was still waking up, Jasmine had already shifted the narrative. And Karoline didn't even know it yet. By 7 a.m., the email had reached inboxes from Capitol Hill to Sacramento. Most ignored it, lost in a sea of morning briefings and newsletter clutter. But by 7:42, someone at the Philadelphia Inquirer clicked it open. 10 minutes later, an assistant editor at the Dallas Morning News did the same. And just after 8 Mofond, a researcher at Face the Nation flagged it. The policy didn't go viral. It went deeper. And that's what Jasmine had counted on all along. He forwarded it to his boss with a single line. "You'll want to read this." What followed wasn't dramatic. No red banners, no breaking news theme music. Just a quiet avalanche. One email forward at a time. Jasmine's proposal didn't shout. It didn't need to. It walked people through lived realities, stories buried in bureaucracy, flaws in the system laid bare, and, most importantly, how to fix them. It drew lines between the abstract and the actual, pointed out patterns, contradictions, and without naming names, it made Karoline's roundtable sound bites feel shallow. Reporters started calling, not just Jasmine's team, but policy analysts, housing advocates, even a few conservative think tanks. They weren't outraged. They were intrigued. By 9 a.m., the hashtags had flipped. What started as Leavitt crushed, it became our Crockett plan and real receipts. In Karoline's Capitol Hill office, her comms director, Seth, read the summary out loud. She had this in the works. Since when? No idea, Karoline muttered, scrolling her phone. But it looks like people think it's brilliant, Beth looked up. It is brilliant, and it calls you out, not by name, but enough that everyone's connecting the dots. Karoline leaned back, lips drawn tight. This was staged. No, Seth said. This was strategy. By noon, Politico ran the headline. Crockett's proposal puts pressure on party lines. The subhead. A round-table jab turns into a legislative lesson. One paragraph. Went viral. Leavitt may have won the applause, but Crockett did the homework. Her bill doesn't just expose gaps in current housing legislation. It leaves very little room for spin. If last night was a fight, this morning, Jasmine Crockett walked, out holding the blueprint. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat in the back seat of a black SUV headed to a shelter in Woonsocket. She hadn't turned on the TV. She hadn't read the coverage. She didn't need to. Liana's phone buzzed nonstop until she finally put it on airplane mode just to breathe. "Why aren't we saying anything?" she asked. Jasmine glanced over. "Because they're saying it for us." At the shelter, Jasmine slipped off her blazer, rolled up her sleeves. A volunteer handed her a clipboard. A staffer walked her through their intake process. Cameras arrived halfway through, but she didn't flinch. She was already deep in it, asking about staffing gaps, paperwork delays, budget shortfalls. Not for show, for answers. Outside, as she stepped onto the sidewalk, a reporter called out, "Congresswoman, is this visit part of a media push for your proposal?" She didn't break stride. "I've been coming here for 3 years, she said. They just finally noticed." Her tone was flat, factual, not smug. Inside the press van, someone whispered, "She's not reacting. She's just working." The headlines rolled in. The quiet counterpunch. MSNBC. A missed swing. Crockett's heavy hit. Vox. How to win without shouting. NPR. What stunned political insiders wasn't just what Jasmine released, but when. She hadn't waited for Karoline to attack. She'd already built the answer. By evening, 2 moderate Republicans and an independent senator said they were open to discussions on the Crockett proposal. Not an endorsement, but it was momentum. Karoline, meanwhile, was booked for 3 interviews, and every producer had Jasmine's bill. Each segment now began with the same line. "Let's talk about the proposal that has everyone talking today." Karoline stuck to her talking points, but each answer felt thinner, like she was arguing with someone who wasn't in the room. Because Jasmine didn't need to be. While Karoline tried to pull the spotlight back, Jasmine had already moved on, and the country was following Karoline. Knew how to take a hit. Or she thought she did. The next morning, hair, makeup, mic check, a full team briefing. Her first interview was a conservative podcast, Safe Ground. The host opened. Looks like the left's trying to make noise again. What's your take on Crockett's little housing memo? Karoline smiled on cue. It's a flashy document, sure, she said. But let's not forget. Housing policy is complex. You can't just throw words on paper and call it a plan. Except that's not what Jasmine had done. And Karoline knew it. Still, she leaned in. I've actually looked at this so-called proposal. It's got emotion, I'll give her that. But the math doesn't add up. What she didn't realize was that fact-checkers were already on it. By her second interview, Reuters had posted a line-by-line breakdown. Headline, Crockett's proposal checks out. Leavitt's critique does not. Karoline's phone buzzed. During the segment, a text from Seth. You need to stop saying the math is wrong. It's not. People are noticing. She stared at the screen. She hadn't expected it to spiral this fast. By late afternoon, 2 different hosts asked if she planned to introduce an alternative. She dodged. Twice. Defaulted to personal responsibility. Talking points. But the damage was done. Karoline tried to stay on message. Talking points about bloated budgets and bureaucratic overreach. But something had shifted. The buzzwords weren't landing like they used to. That evening, PBS NewsHour ran a 6-minute segment unpacking Jasmine's bill. No pundits, just people. A bus driver in Baltimore, a teacher in Wichita, a grandmother in El Paso raising 2 grandkids after their eviction. One woman holding back tears said, This bill. It feels like somebody finally listened. The next morning on Morning Joe, a political strategist who'd run comms for Karoline last cycle, admitted what few on her team would say aloud. Jasmine Crockett played this masterfully. No jabs, no stage theatrics, just the work. And it holds up. Even Gorbachevsky nodded. We are not used to this in politics. Restraint with results. Karoline watched the segment in silence. Didn't sip her coffee. Barely moved. Just crossed her arms tighter. Seth tried to break the tension. We could pivot, maybe focus on inflation or education. No, Karoline said, jaw set. She ambushed us with this bill. We're not pivoting. We're pushing back. But it's not landing. Then make it land. Seth didn't answer. He just left, texting a colleague on the Hill. She's spiraling. Won't let it go. It's getting obvious. Meanwhile, Jasmine stayed quiet. No interviews, no panels. Just one public statement from her team. We welcome all critiques, as long as they come with real alternatives. This isn't about who talks louder. It's about who does the work. The quote went viral. Even Dana Haynes, a conservative strategist, retweeted it with, Hard to argue with that. But it wasn't just media buzz. It was the public. Emails began flooding Karoline's office. Calm, firm, consistent. Have you read Representative Crockett's proposal? Do you support it? If not, what's your plan? Some shared personal stories. Others just asked for answers. That afternoon, Karoline issued a new statement. It was meant to sound resolute. We're reviewing all policy proposals and will continue to support smart, targeted solutions that help American families. It said nothing. And this time, even her base noticed. On Facebook, comments shifted from loyal to skeptical. Talk radio allies began asking the question out loud. Where's her counterplan? She didn't have one. And while Karoline scrambled to Reclaim the spotlight. Jasmine's silence echoed louder. By midweek, Washington had caught up. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just a rising voice. She was the conversation. Rather than wasting breath pointing out someone else's mistakes, Jasmine chose to stay focused. That one line, quiet, almost offhand, was picked up by The Guardian, then the AP, then USA Today. In D.C., her silence worked like a mirror. The more Karoline spoke, trying to contain the fire, the more disconnected she seemed. The more Jasmine stayed quiet, the more people leaned in, waiting to hear what she might say next. In a closed-door strategy meeting, Liana stared at Jasmine in disbelief. "You're not going to say anything? Not even a tweet?" Jasmine shook her head. "She's already said enough." Liana folded her arms. "It's a smart play, but you're really okay just letting her implode?" Jasmine looked up from her tablet. This was never about her. It's about what happens next. What happened next came faster than anyone expected. That weekend, Jasmine's housing proposal passed its first vote in the House Subcommittee on Housing and Community Development. 6 yes votes, 1 Republican, 1 independent. It wasn't law, yet, but it was moving. It was alive. Karoline's name didn't appear once in the subcommittee notes. At a town hall in St. Paul, Jasmine stood before 200 people. Parents, veterans, students, seniors. No blazer. Just a deep blue sweater, slacks, and worn sneakers. The mic crackled before she spoke. "I don't care who gets the credit. I care that no veteran sleeps in their car next winter. That no mom works 2 jobs and still can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment. That no child fails a grade because they moved 5 times in 1 year. We have the money. We've always had the money. We just needed the will." Applause didn't explode. It built. Quiet at first, then steady, sustained. That same night, Karoline's fundraiser in Cincinnati was quietly canceled. No public reason. Just an email from the host. "We're going to pause on this for now." By Monday, the Boston Globe ran a headline that said it all. "Crockett builds while Leavitt burns." Karoline released a new statement, saying she'd been deeply misunderstood and was committed to respectful dialogue. But no one was listening anymore. While Karoline kept trying to rewrite the narrative, Jasmine had already moved on, and the country was moving with her. That Friday, Jasmine visited a much smaller room, St. Mark's Community Center in Akron, Ohio. No podium, no press, just folding chairs, donated baked goods, and peeling name tags. To Jasmine, it mattered more than any committee vote. She walked in quietly, canvas tote over her shoulder, still wearing the same sneakers from St. Paul. Kids darted between chairs. Soft gospel played from a crackling Bluetooth speaker. By the juice table, Mrs. Dorsey, a retired school nurse in her 70s, took Jasmine's hands. "You don't know what this means to us," she said. Her eyes were watery, but her voice steady. Jasmine smiled. "I think I do. I still want to hear you say it," Mrs. Dorsey whispered. They spoke for 5 minutes. No rush, no handlers, just 2 women. One who had spent her whole life trying to be seen, and another making sure she finally was. That was the real win. Not the subcommittee vote, not the glowing headlines, not even the whispered endorsements drifting in from those still too nervous to go public. It was this. Real people. Not influencers, not consultants, starting to believe again. That someone was out there fighting for them. Back in D.C., Karoline hadn't posted in 3 days. Her team was fracturing. Seth had stopped replying. A senior advisor quit without warning. Donors had gone quiet. The story had shifted. It wasn't Crockett versus Leavitt anymore. It was, what does leadership actually look like? And Jasmine. She never raised her voice, never smeared Karoline's name, never chased a headline or clapped back for the algorithm. She let the work speak. She let the people decide what mattered. Even in private, she stayed sharp, intentional. Over dinner one night, Liana had asked, "Did you ever think about going for the throat?" Jasmine didn't flinch. "Of course," she said. "But that's the cheap win." "I'm not trying to win loud. I'm trying to win right." She paused, then added, "And more importantly, I'm trying to keep winning." It wasn't arrogance. It was clarity. The country had just watched a quiet masterclass in strategy, in restraint, in timing. Most didn't realize it until the dust had already settled. A month later, when the full housing bill reached the House floor, Jasmine spoke only once, brief, calm, focused. "This is for the people who stopped asking for help," she said, "because they were tired of being ignored. Today we show them they were never invisible." The applause wasn't thunderous. It was real. It was earned. The vote, 229 in favor, 204 against. No eruption. Just a quiet stillness, the kind that follows something true, something that matters. Outside, her car waited, engine humming. Before she got in, a reporter called out, "Do you feel like you finally got the last word?" Jasmine looked at her. "There was never supposed to be a last word," she said. "Just better ones." She got in, closed the door, and drove away. Because sometimes the loudest wins are the ones that don't need to be shouted.